Cold calling. Just hearing that phrase probably made your stomach twist a little, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert, but I felt the same way before, and I found a few things that make cold calling or dialing a little bit easier. Hang tight, grab a cup of coffee or whatever type of beverage you prefer, and just try to soak in some of the tidbits I've picked up along the way of my very new and very short insurance career so far. I'm going to break it down into a simple 3-step process, plus a bonus, which is really just what I say and do the first 10 seconds of the call when I hear hello. And if you enjoy the video or learn anything along the way, go ahead, drop a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. First, let's clear something up. Not every call or every dial you're going to make is a cold call. If you ever bought leads from EverQuote or Smart Financial, Hometown Quote, something like that, whatever, and a person filled out a form, even if it was 3 weeks ago or whatever, that's still a warm lead. They showed interest at some point. They raised their hand. They just don't care about you yet. Cold calling is when you're calling someone who didn't request anything. No form, no click, nothing. So if you're in a business-to-business setting, you may actually be doing a lot of cold calling. If you are business-to-consumer, generally that's a warm lead, warm referral, something. They showed interest somehow. Therefore, it isn't a cold call to begin with. Cold calling is more like, hey, I found your info on a list or database, or I'm just calling people in your zip code. You want to chat? Now, this doesn't mean warm leads are easier. It doesn't mean they give a crap about what you're trying to sell them, but it does mean you need to shift your mindset. On a true cold call, your goal is to not get hung up on, and on a warm call, which is chances are what you're doing, your goal is just to remind them what they clicked on and why you're calling in the first place. The second part, which is probably the hardest for you, it's the hardest for me, is just to start dialing. You might have a list or a CRM pulled up. Maybe you just have a simple spreadsheet. It's, whatever your process is. Maybe even wrote down what you're going to say, but you just sit there staring at your screen like it's going to dial itself, or maybe staring at your phone if you're using a physical, phone. Been there. I still go there every morning right before I start dialing. And the truth is, the only way to stop hearing it is just to do it. The first couple of phone calls of the day are most likely going to be the worst. Those are the ones where you're going to fumble your words. You might sound robotic. Maybe you'll say, way too much. Who cares? That's normal. You just got to learn to eat those awkward calls like warm-up reps at the gym, or if you don't go to the gym like me, maybe your first few warm-up games on whatever it is you like to play. You don't get better at quote-unquote cold calling by reading scripts in your head. You get better by talking to people. Badly at first, but the same is true for just about any learned skill. I used to work at Starbucks, and my job was to make people coffee. And if I made the coffee well, they wouldn't come back and ask me to remake it. If I made it poorly, they'd ask me to come back and remake it. The same is going to be true when you're dialing your leads and calling your leads. The only difference is, instead of remaking a cup of coffee, whatever, you're just going to get hung up on less. And the third step is really related to the second step. It's identifying what you're scared of, right? Because that's why you can't dial to begin with. So let's get real for a second. If you're nervous to cold call, if you can call it that still, it's not because you don't know what to say, because chances are you've been provided a script. It's because you're scared of what the other person might do or say back. Most often than not, that's what you're afraid of. So identify that fear. Are you scared of someone yelling at you, hanging up on you mid-sentence, telling you to get a real job? Cool. All of that has happened to me and worse. And guess what? I'm still here. Nobody's ever come to my house and beat the crap out of me because I asked them if they wanted a quote or something like that. Worst thing that's happened, someone screamed at me just the other day and told me never to call again. I said, sounds good. Click, you hang up and you move on. It's that simple. It's really not that deep. The moment you realize that rejection won't kill you, it gets easier to just keep dialing. It really is kind of a repetition thing. So the more practice you have hearing no, I promise, the more comfortable you're going to be hearing no. And it's important to realize that every no you hear is just bringing you closer to a yes. So it really is just a step in the right direction either way. And it's also important to remember you're not asking for anyone to do anything terribly outlandish or bizarre anyway. There was a guy called, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, Jia Jiang, and he did a TED Talk called What I Learned from 100 Days of Rejection. I'll drop a link to that in the description because it's a really good video for people who are in sales in general, not just specifically insurance. So my 3 steps to you are to identify if it's even a cold call, identify what you're scared of, and then just start dialing. All right, so you've made it this far to the bonus round, so to speak. I'm going to tell you exactly what I say on a lukewarm lead call, or if you truly are cold calling, it'll work too. You just may have to tweak it, especially if they didn't book a time with me or expect to hear from me. So let's just say I'm calling John. He requested a quote for car insurance. He says hello. I say, hi, John. He goes, yes, this is John. I say, this is Noah. Thanks for taking my call. You're probably going to hate me for this, but I'm calling you about car insurance. Are you hanging up now, or can I have 30 seconds? You can have 30 seconds. Great. Well, the reason I was calling to begin with is it looks like you filled out something online requesting quotes for a 2014 Chevy Silverado. What had you thinking about leaving State Farm? Well, I'm paying too much at State Farm. I was hoping for a lower rate. Whatever he says next, great, just continue into your script. You've already got him on the call. He's essentially agreed to a quote at this point. So that's really about all I've got. Those are my 3 main steps that I do. Plus, you've got my script there. If you're still nervous about cold calling or calling your warm leads after this video, that's fine. I just highly encourage you to make 5 dials anyway. All I ask is 5. Because 5 leads to 10, 10 leads to a groove, and the groove leads to momentum, and that's when you start to get sales, is when you have that momentum. If this video helped in any way, drop a comment, tell me your worst cold call story or your best one. And if you want more content like this, hit subscribe. I'm not just some guy giving advice from the sidelines, I'm actually there in the trenches. So I know a guy who's been there. See what I did there? Peace out, and have a great rest of your day. Don't give up.